Hey folks, Scott with Archery Unhinged. Man, we had such a successful episode last time. My phone exploded. I know Jason's phone exploded. We decided to do a part two. We got Mr. George Ryals with us again today. It's exciting stuff. George, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you guys doing?
Man, we're doing great. And I tell you, it was such a overwhelmingly successful for our listeners, at least last week. And I know you've been in high demand the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I did a few things with some super popular YouTubers, and a whole bunch of new people found me.
Exactly. Well, it was crazy successful. We had a lot of people call in talking about, it's kind of crazy. We were talking earlier, the torqueless D-loop is going to make a resurgence, I'm pretty sure. My phone went crazy. How do I make it?
I don't know that you could call it a resurgence, really, because there was only a few of us shooting them that knew, what was going on with torqueless D-loops.
Yeah.
But I guess we could just call it a first time launch.
Yeah, first time launch, exactly. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people never heard of it.
It finally made it after 30 years. It finally made it.
Well, I got a question that because I'm not going to lie, a lot of these people that were calling me, they're hunters. Does it work in a hunting situation, in your opinion?
It does work on a hunting situation, and benefits of a torqueless D-loop are really noticeable when shooting broadheads.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And the only one thing, right, that I don't have a torqueless D-loop on my hunting bow is because you have to really look at that, to put your release on the string.
Yep.
And unless you're one of the hook your release on the string and let it dangle guys, right?
Yeah.
A torqueless would be just fine for that. But I just don't usually use the torqueless on my hunting bow because I'd like to be able to put my release on the D-loop without looking at it.
So I'm assuming you shoot a wrist strap then?
No, I use a handheld, but okay. I can hook the handheld on the wrist strap. I mean, on the wrist strap, on the regular D-loop without looking down. I can kind of feel it with my finger and just hook it.
Yeah, but if you're if you have a handheld that you can loop on and leave it on and hang it, it's especially down here in Texas, a lot of these guys are Texas blind hunters or tree stand hunters. We can hook it and hang it, and let it go, and forget about it. So
yeah, and that would be fine. It's just somebody who's using a caliper or an index trigger release.
Yeah.
The torqueless being it doesn't have any body to it, so it doesn't really stick out.
Right.
So somebody might fumble a chance at a big animal, kind of fiddling with that. The torqueless D-loop. So I don't advise against it, but just know what you're getting into, and if you shoot it every day, likely it probably won't be a problem.
Right. But there are some. It makes perfect sense. I never even thought about the broadhead flight, correcting some of the anomalies with string loop torque.
Definitely,
especially with the
broadheads magnify everything.
Oh yeah,
especially with the D-loop material that a lot of hunters use on their bows. They use that really
super
thick,
stiff.
Yeah, and short D-loops.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. That's interesting. Well, I know some guys. I got about a half a dozen of them. I think I'm going to give it a run. They were calling me like crazy how to build it. And I, told everybody, hey, go to Thing a Week. You've been doing it for a while. There's got to be a ton of old videos about it out there.
3 inches.
And Lancaster, doesn't Lancaster carry them?
Lancaster does carry them, but I don't know what kind of stock they have.
Okay. And you had mentioned...
Unless they've talked someone else into making them for them, which is fine.
Right.
Leo used to make every torqueless D-loop that UltraView or Lancaster sold.
Okay.
So before that, it was one of the other kids,
UltraView does carry them, correct?
They do carry them, and they may have some stock.
Okay. Good to know. So, yeah. So I know we wanted to do maybe a follow-up on number 2 that happened. Jason had posted a little excerpt of the arrow spine alignment on the shafts, and I know we were talking a little bit pre-show. Yeah, I got a lot of questions about that. Are the manufacturers really spine testing those arrows every shaft before they package them up, get them shipped out? Or is it really just going through the motions of rolling through and having a label printed on it? And if your arrow's super straight, theoretically there isn't a high side. A lot of manufacturers say that. I know Ultra's new arrows are now what they call spineless. because their straightness
I
is so
think
good.
the Ultra is backing out of that whole spinal line because they're saying there's nowhere you're going to find a different spine, so you don't have to do it. And and they're saying our tube is a quality tube because the spine is consistent all the way around
it. Correct.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty wild to say. So I think you had mentioned you got a phone call.
Yeah. I got a call from Steve Greenway at Victory Arrows. He is their the guy that's pretty much over that whole subsection of Mitsubishi.
Right.
And he said, I want to set the record straight. I wanted to call you and let you know what our process of arrow selection looks like. And he said, what we do is we proof test every single shaft, which is great, right? And what proof testing is they've got, a machine that the arrow falls into. And of course, there's ball bearings at all of the points so that everything is free to move and, do whatever it needs to do. And then they bend that arrow 8 to 12 inches as a proof test that says, yes, this arrow won't snap. There's no manufacturer defects or, whatever. Mm-hmm. And he said that he observed when they did that proof testing step that the arrow would go blink and it would orient, to a specific, size. And if he takes it out and puts it back in there and does it again, bloop,
Same thing.
Orients itself.
Right.
So then a laser marks the, that orientation.
Right.
Then they run them to labeling, and his labeling machine has an eye that will read that laser orientation to make sure that the logo is applied with the mark, where it needs to be. Right. So he is saying, yes, they do that to every single shaft that goes through there, no matter whether if it's the cheapest kid arrow that they make or the absolute number one whiz bang arrow. Right. And he was just calling to set that straight. And we got to talking about it. And I asked a couple questions. And the first question was, you're not actually measuring the spine with that test. You're bending it. So then the column finally goes boop, and it,
orientates
fails
to that
isn't the right word. Fails isn't the right word, but it orients itself. Right.
Exactly.
And I asked him, I said, have you tested the spine? And if you did test the spine, what was the greatest deviation? Right. And he said the greatest deviation that it would be if they were spine testing every 10 degrees around the shaft. Mm-hmm. He said that it was a 0.5
Wow.
was the difference. And I said, so a 0.5 doesn't seem, like anything to me. Right. And he goes, well, it's something. And when you're shooting and testing these things, right, you can tell a difference in the group size. And I'm asking him, how big of a difference in the group size is it, right? And he kind of came down to it and said the group size difference between a randomized dozen and a matched dozen, matching it his way, isn't that significant, but you can tell a difference. The real difference was with broadheads, where you could really see the difference, right? And he said, quality in the gear, making sure all of that matches, counts for something, right? And so I said, do you have any, so that seems marginal to me. Like, we worry about it, but it's not critical that we worry about it. That's what I'm reading on this. Is that what it sounds like to you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Without a doubt.
So then I asked him, has there been any shooting studies to see what that effect is or anything? And he says, oh yeah, we had Dave Cousins come in and he shot him. And I remember something about him going and doing some arrow testing at one point. Like I had heard he was doing it.
Right.
And so he's tested it and he says, yes, you can tell a difference, but it's very small.
Right.
But fixed blade broadheads you can see a difference. And in his opinion, it matters.
Yeah, I think for the hunter, it would be,
broadheads.
I can, because we're essentially putting vanes on the front of the shaft. And with that being said, now you've got two ends fighting each other for what I call flight supremacy. What's going to steer front or back? And 100%, I think it matters for that. You know, from a target guy to backyard archer, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. We talked on the phone for 45 minutes and went through several different other things. And I asked him, because they've done extensive testing, and Easton has also done extensive testing on all of those different, ideas of spine aligning and all that kind of stuff. So right now I have talked to one of my friends at Easton and asked them, do they have any papers where they had done these studies? Mm-hmm. And then did they write it down anywhere, a final report of their findings? Because I kind of like to go through those and find some stuff I don't know, or stuff that I thought was true, and find out it isn't true anymore. I would love to go through all that.
So it's kind of cool, because this leads us into a segue. So one of the things that everyone loved about the whole thing is the fact that we were kind of not dispelling myths, but talking about some of the things that are out there in the industry right now, social media wise and everything else. And I've got a list of like 23. We're probably not going to get through all of them tonight, but since we're on the subject matter of arrows, some of the things that I know have come to mind, some of the things that people have talked to us about and talked to me specifically over the years, which, let's talk about this first one, because it falls right into place of what you're talking about. Can someone really outshoot a .005, .003, or .001 arrow? Is there...
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, is there validation in spending an extra $50 for a 001 versus a 003? Tim and I, Gillingham, have had numerous conversations over the last probably 10, 15 years about this subject. Like, if you're cutting an arrow as short as I cut them, because I'm a 26-inch draw, he thinks it becomes almost a non-issue, because I'm going to be, Gold Tip, I know, does what they call the middle 28. They guarantee their straightness tolerances, and from 32 inches, you get to the half, 14 and 14 on each side is what they guarantee. Outside that, so the extra 4 inches, going to 32, they don't, we always have to cut some of it off end to end. But with my arrow, like, for example, being a 25-inch crossbow bolt, I can take a .003 and probably make that thing 001 fairly easy. So I guess the question, million-dollar question, is there causality into buying a 005, 003, 001, and can the average archer outshoot those arrows?
Okay, so there is an actual study about that. It's in the Journal of Sports Science, and I don't remember everyone who was on that, but James Park was one of them, was on it, and there was many people on it, right, working together on this whole thing. And long story short, they came down to it between 001, and you could get as out as 006 before you could tell whether if an arrow had a bend in it or not. So up to 006, right, no one could tell, right? But the one thing that they did note is the knot concentricity with the shaft and the point concentricity with the shaft, right, makes a bigger difference than the shaft straightness, right? And they also noted in there that, and I'm skipping over a whole bunch of stuff, you can go read it, but they also noted in there that the pliability of the nock material made a difference during the initial launch, that they were getting deflection in the nock material. And they said that the closer the string is to the pin or to the, back of the arrow, that the more accurate it would be, somewhat similar to like an Easton microlight knock or something like that, very short-throated, thing.
Right.
So they recommended the shortest short throat nocks because they have less chance of deflection.
Gotcha.
And biter nocks are made out of like a harder material. Mm-hmm. And even though their indoor nocks are pretty long, you still don't get that deflection.
Gotcha. So with that being said, maybe to skip to something else too, this has always been a polarizing subject. Can you fletch veins too far down a shaft?
Well, yeah. I mean, if they were halfway down the shaft, the thing would probably fly a curve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because sometimes,
as far as, from the throat of the nock, right. I don't know if there's an optimal difference.
Yeah.
Because I've messed around with it. I've put it in forward so that the veins wouldn't touch around my chin, so I had plenty of room there. And they shot just fine. And I've done some with the veins, back closer to the nock. And I can't tell the difference.
Right.
And I haven't really worried about it that much, to get a shooting machine out and actually test it.
Right. The only reason I ask it, there's, I noticed this year I was at London, I think Danny McCarthy, I seen Danny, and he had fleshed his arrows literally, I want to say, 1/8 of an inch away from the back of the carbon. I mean, they were on the nock, essentially. Mm-hmm. And that surprised me because Danny's got a beard.
I'm sure he's figuring the far back on the shaft they are, the greater the influence they would have
steering,
on shaft stability. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But does it matter, between 2 inches away and an 1/8 inch away? I don't know. I haven't been able to see a difference myself, but I won't say it does not matter. I won't say that.
I've always been of the opinion that you take them as far forward as you can to eliminate facial, because I think facial contact is that would hurt your shot more than anything. And if you can eliminate, big time. Yeah. So if you can eliminate that possibility, especially if you got a big gruff beard, hanging out, eliminating that will help more. That will help you more than putting the vein on the very back of the arrow, because aerodynamically that is superior, because it makes sense from a theory standpoint. But I was just curious if you'd ever tested it, because it was something that came up a lot.
Well, especially with big veins too. Like when you get into the 3-inch, the taller ones, those are going to be hitting your chin, your beard.
Well,
which is why I don't grow a beard anymore, aside from it being white. I mean, I just stopped. I was getting a lot of contact, and I was ripping hairs out too. So
right. So so this brings me up to maybe question number 2, since we're on arrows. Arrow fletchings. Does it really matter as much? You hear all the guys talk about blazers, 1.7s, 2.5s, 3-inch, 3.7. I mean, it goes up and down. Too tall, too shallow. A lot of vein options out there. Is there a magic recipe, or is there validity into a taller veins better, longer veins better? I know it comes down to surface area. I've talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
Surface area of the vein, whether it's long or tall, is really, as it captures and gathers wind and steerability, you get to look at the whole picture.
Yeah, a lot of the studies show that vein height makes more correction and more overall stability for the entire arc. That's the vein height rather than the length that really makes a difference. And Blazer and DCA Saber veins, a few of those, they do something a little bit different, that they've got a wide leading edge, and their shape creates more than one leading edge, which they say that gives even further stability, because the leading edge of the vein is part of the equation for stability.
Correct.
Not just the height and the overall surface area.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. Because if you even look at a wing on a plane, I came out of aerospace, and the leading edge of an aircraft wing is actually very wide. The trailing edge of that wing is extremely thin, as it's taking air and sucking it down as it's going at supersonic speed, of course, and you get a flatter, more aerodynamic trajectory for the wind to go past the wing, which gives you quicker speeds. I mean, there's a million different scientific reasons we do it. So it makes perfect sense, because if you think about veins, there's a lot of veins, and I'm not going to name some that I know, but they actually have a very sharp leading edge, and actually can be wider on the back end, which I think causes cavitation problems.
Yeah, but then you also have to think of material thickness and stuff like that. You want wings on a plane to flex when going through turbulence and stuff like that. So you don't want a vein that's like steel rigid and doesn't give that flex, or do you want it to?
Well, and it's interesting you bring that up because look at all the new vein material that's out now. Everybody's going stiffer. I think tack started that whole trend. AAEs have always been, and flex extremely soft veins. And now, Boning even came out with the X vein, that new material that was super, super stiff, especially with the heat veins. And now you've got the tack veins, which are hyper high durometer thickness and stiffness in that vein. And I think Q2I even came out with a stiffer one this year.
Yep.
So it seems like the trend is is going that direction. And I don't know if it's because of cavitation or, the flexibility. They're tougher for sure, but they're also tougher to stick, in my opinion. I mean, any comment on that?
Well,
George,
there's one of the things that came out. I believe I'm just sitting here racking my brain, trying to remember where it came out of. But it was maybe the Easton Aero study that they just recently did, or something else. But they're showing that molded veins, the ones that are injection molded, are giving more stability, more consistent, quieter flight, over the trajectory, the ones that were the quietest and most stable. That they're seeing that the molded veins are performing a lot better than the ribbon cut veins. And I'm guessing it's because the extra rigidity you get from the molded vein that contributes to that.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Okay, so next one then, four fletch versus 3.
I have talked to a few super smart people that have actually done the math and the fluid analysis and all of that on that, and they agree that 4 fletch doesn't hurt you at all, but it doesn't help you at all either, right? You're just spending more money on veins.
Really?
So if you think it looks cool and you just want to do it, it's not going to hurt you one bit. Go ahead, do 4 fletch, right? But if you're scrimping and you don't have enough veins left, 3 veins is just fine.
So
I have a question about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so if you're gonna 4 fletch, in my opinion, in my non-scientific brain, I'm gonna take the length of that 4th vein, split the difference and split it between the other 3, and just use longer veins on the other 3 to equal that 4 fletch. Or am I completely off?
So what you're saying does make sense.
Yeah, because it's surface area.
Correct. I don't have the answer to that, right? That's starting to get out of what I know about the veins, right?
Right.
But the way that I understand this is the amount of displacement you get with 3 veins, adding the 4th doesn't give you a return. It's like maxed out at 4. And when you get to 6, that's when it starts breaking like a flu.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So I don't know that, but that's the way I understand it.
Yeah. Well, it makes perfect sense because it's awesome to hear that someone did the study to find out if there was an aerodynamic superior basis for 4 versus 3.
Yeah.
I think I look at it more application driven for me. So through my studies and testing, and Jason and I have talked about this in length. FIDA games, for sure, because you're dealing with wind. You're giving more surface area for wind to capture the arrow to help steer it either right or wrong. You're just giving it more, and when it needs less in that game. Now, you go to 3D, we're shooting inside the woods. We typically don't have wind that we have to deal with. Does the extra vein give you more stability, to make that accurate shot at that little 25-cent piece we're shooting at 50 yards? So I don't
think the extra vein is helping or hurting.
Right. So it could be, it looks cool.
And especially I wouldn't 4 fletch if I was doing like a long FIDA, like 90 meters.
Right.
Because it's pretty significant that if you have too much drag on the back of your arrow, like if you've got a helical that is also offset and the arrow, your groups at 70 are okay, but then when you go to 90, they've just exploded.
Right.
Because it's just like a dramatic, change in your groups.
Right.
Because the arrow is decelerating too fast, coming in, and it knuckleballs, coming into the target. So that's why the groups open up huge. So when you see your groups are, it should go 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, kind of a gradient.
But if
it goes,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
If it goes 30, 50, 70, 90, right, then you got a problem. So the levers that you can pull, to change that is the vane height and the vane offset. Right. So for that long range stuff, I use offset straight.
Yep.
So that I can minimize drag but still have the stability.
I've always used the rule of thumb, 1 inch for every 10 yards. Now, granted, for you and I, if we shot a 100-yard, 10-inch group, we're probably not going to be real crazy happy with that. But for the average layman archer, 100 yards, 10-inch group is pretty good shooting for the guy that's not.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy good.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why. So I always say 1 inch for every 10 yards, which brings us to the next question, which is a good one. Helical versus non-helical. And I bring it up because, you got some social media influencers out there right now. They have the most wicked, I'm telling you, I've seen some helicals that wrap around half the arrow shaft on a 3-fletch vane. And I mean, it looks like the inside of a rifle barrel. And I think that's the premise. You hear a lot of arguments and talks about rifling an arrow, versus straight. Is there a happy medium? I preach 2-degree offsets only on everything for me, for the most part. If I just because I think the heavy helical will hurt you more than it helps you. Now, there is some argument: does that help you more in a cut on contact broadhead situation? Do we want to spin that arrow at a high rate, to get that broadhead on the front end spinning straight? What's your thoughts on that one?
Well, the helical, I see a lot of guys is like, well, if 2-degree helical is good, then 4 would be great, right? And in close range, like 0 to 35 or 40, no problem, right? What I would worry about is the extra noise that a really big helical makes, that coming into the animal. And if you pay attention, that's the deer's reacting to that, not the sound of your bow.
Right.
And I feel like it's that way because their head always looks back, and they look like they're looking at the arrow to me.
Right.
So I would go more for just 2-degree or less helical, or even a 2-degree offset straight can be just as stable, but it runs more quiet.
Yeah, that's exactly for most everyone who I've ever worked with, it's 2-degree offset straight. 2-degree offset, we call it. It's plenty offset to get the arrow spinning properly, and because, like I said, there's some guys out there doing insane helicals. I mean, and I just don't see an aerodynamic advantage for that. Matter of fact, I think you're creating so much drag, such a parachute effect by spinning that back end of that arrow at a high rate, contorting that air as it's spinning at a high rate, it's going to drag your arrow down. So then you'll start losing point of impact distance that you may be trying to achieve, especially some of these tack guys, they're wanting to get to the holy grail now is 112 yards, Yeah. So it does make a difference.
Would you do it on a target arrow?
No, I don't. Heck, I know Danny, me and Danny talked about this in length one time, and he runs his straight. He runs everything dead straight.
Since we're talking about the distances that guys are trying to sight broadheads into and all of that, I just want to say one thing that was ingrained into me as I was growing up and living, my life at archery. I've been lucky to be around some of the fathers of modern bow hunting over the course of my life, and I've had them shake their finger at me for shooting long shots and things like that.
Right.
But the one thing that sticks with me is that the real flex, with bow hunting, the real bragging point is how close the deer was to you when you shot it.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Because if you're shooting deer so close that you can see their eyelashes, you're a bow hunter, right? Mm-hmm. And when I was growing up, that was the thing. It was about being really close and taking close shots. So I think it would be better if a lot of folks didn't quite stretch it out quite so much.
Well, and I hate to say it, but this is a tough one for me to say, but TAC is perpetuating that. It's
I think I'm totally cool with TAC because we're all adults. We can tell the difference between fun and fact, right? And TAC is just like, let's just make this crazy and, see how fun it is, kind of a thing.
Right. But
a lot of the online bow hunters shooting animals at 90, 100, 110 yards. If, the general public should start doing that, it would be a problem.
Well,
right.
And that's what I'm afraid of. You got the guys that go to TAC, they shoot the RMEF course, and, they punch foam at 110 on those elk targets and think, wow.
It's going to be the same thing.
It's going to be the same thing when Johnny Deere is standing out there at 90, and should he be taking
just
that
a
shot?
Simple fact of putting that broadhead on the end of the arrow, that totally changes the game.
The game, 100%.
Because everything shows up. Your tune, if it's not immaculate, it's going to show up. If your form is not dead on, it's going to show up. Yeah. And even the best shooters shoot bigger groups with broadheads than they do with regular target stuff.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say it, because I think if you want to become a better hunter, be a better spot and stall guy, if you got an opportunity to get closer, then work on the skill set of getting closer instead of just
and another thing, don't get me wrong, I know those trophy mule deer hunters.
Oh yeah.
They have to shoot some long shots on those things because they're not going to let anything get within 60 yards, right? I totally get that.
A desert muley in Tucson or up in Wickenburg, Arizona, you're not. If you get 60, you're one hell of a hunter.
You're a ninja.
You are a ninja. Them things, I'm telling you, they hear. It's insane how good they hear.
Well, that's why they have those big ears.
That's why they got those big ears, exactly. That's great advice, George, and I'm glad you brought that up. The other one is, oh crap, my phone. Let me go down this list here. Okay, arrow grain weight and tolerances. You're talking about, and what I'm saying there is that I got some guys that I used to build arrows for, and this one guy was a fellow engineer. If I didn't get them within 1 grain, he wouldn't buy them. And that's hard. And sometimes, you can get them pretty close, but, and I've heard, and you see a lot on social media, the guys talking about, man, I got my arrows within 2 grains. I got my arrows within 3 grains. In your opinion,
that's 2 drops of glue.
Yeah. Where does that lie? Is it plus or minus 10 grains to keep groups at 50 yards the same? What do you think?
Yeah. I was just talking to Cody Griffin, at Easton, and he said they did a test where they got 2 arrows that were the same spine but were different weights. Mm-hmm. And then they got 2 arrows that were the same weight but different spine. And then they grouped those, and they discovered that you couldn't tell a difference if one of those arrows was 5 grains lighter. But if the spine was off, it made a big difference.
Yep.
So they discovered that spine was a lot more important than weight. Right? And I'm pretty sure that's why now they go through that spine sorting process, and they've got the weight codes and, all that stuff on them so that they know exactly what those arrows are and can sort those into the appropriate places. Right. So that getting it down to a half a grain or whatever, that's fantastic. But if it's at the expense of you being out in the yard practicing your shot execution and shooting broadheads and just really living with your bow in your hand and actually building skills, right? That's where the real rubber meets the road, right? Your equipment is nothing. If you have perfect laser bow tune and just absolute perfect full draw form with everything in line, if you don't have smooth shot execution, you got nothing.
Doesn't matter.
Right. So if a guy is going to really stress out over the tuning aspect of his equipment, it's not enough juice for the squeeze. Mm-hmm. So if he just kind of made the equipment setup adequate and then went out there and worked on himself, that he would get a lot more miles on the road that way.
Yeah. So is there a number that when you're building your arrows, I mean, were you shooting arrows that were maybe 5 grain variances between them?
Okay, his confession time. Okay. I just put my arrows together and just glue the points in and set everything up. I don't even weigh them. I trust that my Easton has given me shafts that are close, right? That are close enough, and that they've given me shafts that were straight, and the nocks are all straight and all that kind of stuff. So when I'm setting up hunting arrows, I just set them all up, and then I put the broadheads on the end, and that's when I get out my broadhead arrow straightener, the Revolution arrow broadhead checker from Last Chance. I get it in there, and I straighten those things down to where 1/1000th of an inch indicator doesn't move when I turn it.
Right.
So I pay, because that last study I told you about where concentricity mattered more than anything, that's the 2 things I'm going to check the most.
That's
what
all.
about
But
target?
I don't weight match them.
Yeah. Target archery?
In target archery, I haven't weighed my arrows, and I don't know when.
So I'm going to tell you something, Jason. Okay, so listen. So Jason does do it because he's crazy. You don't?
No.
Oh, I thought you were the psycho that did it. He used to do it.
Yeah.
Because I was going to tell you, George, that's an age thing, I think. Because I'm 57 now, and I buy mine pre-fletched. I don't even fletch the darn things anymore.
That's because you hate fletching arrows.
I've considered that too.
No, I'm not lying. I buy our Rampages pre-fletched with 2.5 inch Q2 eyes, and I just fletch it. I literally put inserts in them and go kill things.
Yeah.
Because I don't have time. Go ahead.
Here's the thing is that weight matching, every single shaft, right? It may not matter that much, right? But if you know that your shafts are weight matched with as tighter tolerances as you could, that makes a difference.
Up here.
Right?
Yeah, 6 inches.
And that was one of the things that came out of my victory call. He was like, it's not a big deal, but attention to detail makes a difference.
Yeah. Right? No, I think it matters more. And you know how this sport is. This sport's 95% 6 inches between the ears. And if we keep that happy, good things can happen, regardless of what the tolerances are and stuff. So it makes sense. I get it. I used to be the guy who did that. Dude, I was the idiot. I used to float Game Getter arrows, XX75s in my bathtub. I got hooked on that, floating them and testing them and marking them with the Sharpie.
When everybody started talking about that on Archery Talk, I tested it out. Exactly. And then I was like, wait a minute. This thing is just orienting to the corks. It's not orienting to the shaft.
Yeah. I was a crazy person who did all of it, believe me. So I used to be the guy, but and anymore I'm like you. I put inserts in them and go shoot them.
No, I did at the beginning when I was young and was just watching other people do it. Yeah, dude, I would get all my points, all my little tungsten points and put painter's tape on it.
Measure as glue.
I would put painter's tape and match them. Like this one's 120.5, this one's 120.3, and then do all that stuff. I don't do that. The only thing that I do now that I'm back on the Easton is something that I watched George do, or actually you talked to Matt Stutzman about it. Was it in Netherlands in 2019? This dude's bouncing arrows it was on a carpet. But he was bouncing them point first, and if it rattled, you take the point out and add more glue so that your point's not moving when you shoot. I was like,
And I have video of Matt Stutzman pulling points and gluing them back in with his feet.
Yeah, he was.
That's savage.
Dude, it's no lie. He was sitting on the ground. Yeah. He's sitting on the ground doing it, and he's like pushing the lighter to turn it on with his big toe.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. That's awesome.
Good time.
Yeah, it's the stuff. I mean, when he's sitting down, getting all, in position for us to start handing him arrows to pull the points, and he always amazed me because I would go and I would hand him an arrow. Here you go. This one needs to be pulled. And I'm thinking, I have no idea how he's going to do this. Right.
That guy's.
And then I just watch him casually just do and just do it. It's like, wow.
It's crazy.
I mean, it is impressive watching him do something like that.
Well, it's crazy. People don't know, but, Bridger, of course, our best friend, he is good friends with Matt. He drives a race car. That's what he's doing now.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. To think
he's good at it too.
And he's damn good at it. That's what I've heard. So.
He's a good mechanic.
Where is Bridger, by the way? I haven't seen him in a while.
He was supposed to be on the show tonight, but he unfortunately had to go do husbandly duties.
Busy.
Busy. Well, he's getting married.
That's how it goes. Yeah, you gotta learn to hup too.
So wife to be has got him by the chain right now. So. Okay, so here's another one that came up. This came from one of our listeners. So if you recall, probably 4 or 5 months ago, shortly after Vegas, actually, Bodie Turner got on the podcast with Bow Junkie with Greg and talked about that he has tuned in his bow to have so much vein contact that most guys wouldn't even begin to shoot it, and he won Vegas with it. So, for example, guys shooting blade rests and they're shooting a 4-fletch or even a 3-fletch with a lot of helical, so on and so forth. You got the guys doing the old spray, the foot spray, powder spray test,
right.
Doing the lipstick test, all these different ways to measure vein contact. Bodie came online and basically dispelled those myths from a standpoint of I just won Vegas, the largest archery tournament on the planet, and I did it with the most amount of vein contact that most people would be very uncomfortable with, which created a lot of controversy. I remember, this came up. Is vein clearance as important to accuracy, or is it okay because it's a repeatable process that happens over and over?
For target archery, if you're set up for it, vein contact won't hurt you. I mean, think back, we use springy rests.
Oh, yeah.
The veins just slayed those springy rests,
Shred your feathers.
And shooting any arrow, any micro diameter target arrow across a blade, getting that to completely, perfectly clear, is, it's hard, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, with target archery, you can sight anything in, right? Mm-hmm. And as long as your nocks are oriented, very consistently, shaft to shaft. So essentially when you have contact with like a springy, we had all these little knock aligners that, back in the 80s and 90s, knock aligners to make sure that our nocks were aligned as identical twins, so the arrows would contact the bow or the blade or the spring or whatever with the exact intensity and exact direction, so then you could just sight it in. Right. And I remember once when I was a kid, I was standing behind Terry Ragsdale, and he was at his exact peak form, right? And we're shooting the desert shootout, and they had those bow racks that you put the bow in the rack, like this, right, when you're done shooting. Mm-hmm. And I'm standing behind the rack, and I'm watching him shoot, and he turns around, and he puts his bow in the rack, and he makes eye contact with me. And I go, my brain goes, say something, right? And I said, man, Mr. Ragsdale, your arrows sure do fly bad, right? And he goes, what, really? And he grabbed his binoculars and spun around and looked down at the target. And he said, where'd my arrows hit? And I'm standing there going, well, they're all in the 10 ring.
Exactly.
And he said, I don't care if the knock end sticks in the target first, as long as it's in the 10.
Yep.
And I was like, well, okay.
So true. We always tell this story, and we've probably told it 50 times on this podcast about Bridger in the year that he won finals. And a lot of people don't realize it, but he actually shot a sleeved arrow. He had his 3 perfect arrows, and he had broke one. I think the tip had broke off in it or something.
Yeah, something like that. He had broken a piece off.
Yeah.
And he took a piece from another arrow.
And
pulled the point out, put that small piece under
sleeve,
the point, and then put it back
and
in.
glued it in and won finals.
Wait
with
a
that
minute,
arrow.
you're saying he only had 3 arrows, so he
No.
was having to repair an arrow?
No, he had his
It
favorites.
was a mental thing. You know how that goes. You got your 3 arrows.
I
They run you through finals. You're into the gold medal match, and instead of like literally taking a backup arrow out, he may have only had 6. Who knows with the rotation of arrows and how they work.
Right.
But he literally said he cut about a 1/2-inch sleeve off of an old shaft, and had glued it on as a sleeve so that he can maintain and shoot that same arrow when he broke the end of it off. And, we use that because the guy won the largest archery tournament on planet Earth at the time.
Yeah.
With an arrow that nobody ever would shoot in any tournament, theoretically. To prove that
when you're good,
hey,
right?
man, and that's how it works, really. When you're hot, you're hot.
And I mean, I've seen arrows that I've shot where I can read the labels, and I'm like, okay, that I can see the spine number on it, and it hits a 10, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of but once again, this goes back to that. I think we're going to go back to the same thing that we talk about over and over. The things that we're talking about are what I call trying to dispel the myths of archery. The number of hours that will go into someone trying to eliminate that contact or trying to eliminate the amount of helical and everything. If they would have put that into their shot process training to improve their archery skills versus the mechanical side of it, the technical side, trying to make because here's the deal. You can have the most perfect arrow, the most perfect bow, the perfect tune, and the perfect nock, the perfect vein, perfect point. And if you can't shoot it well, it just won't matter. In my industry, I call it trying to buy points. Mm-hmm.
Right. Better accuracy through aggressive spending. Tuning has its place, right? Yeah. If you look at it, your form consistency has the greatest impact on your group size.
Correct.
And tune really adds forgiveness to
Correct.
The issues or the spectrum, the plus minus whatever in your attempts to do the same form,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It basically is the way that it works out, mm-hmm. right? You see what I'm saying?
Yep. No,
I don't feel like I was clear on that.
No, it makes 100% sense, and that's exactly right. I was writing something else down because you just reminded me of a big one that I want to ask about.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm glad we got a chance to talk about that. That's about all on the arrow side. I guess that brings us to...
No, there was one other thing.
What?
And it's just a little snippet.
Hey, it's number 1 on here, actually.
Yeah. George actually said he died a little bit when I posted this comment.
The FOC?
No, it's not the FOC. It's something... So we were at camp training for World Champs in 2019, and I had some pins and nocks that I had to replace. Mm-hmm. And he saw me putting them in with a plastic bag, and he's like,
we didn't talk about that. That's right.
You need to...
So, bag it or glue it.
Oh, my God. Yeah. So remember that study again, right? That concentricity of your nock and the fit of all of your components was more critical than plus minus 6 thousandths of variance in a shaft, right? Mm-hmm. There's no way anyone can push a pin through a bag and do that in a uniform way. And just a little tiny booger of hot melt on there would be all it would take, and you could field strip it with a cigarette lighter if you needed to pull it out and put another one in. Right. And making that nock crooked, and then I hear a lot of people say, well, when I rotate my nocks, it makes a big difference. I would check really close whether if it could be a crooked nock or is something going on with the shaft that makes the differences so bad, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Is it a clearance thing with the bow? Right? Is there some reason why it's not working?
Gotcha. So you're a glue it guy before bag it. By far.
Yes.
Okay.
Do not ever bag it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I was a bag guy.
You got your absolute for this podcast that everybody can flame me about.
There you go.
I will always bag my arrows forever.
Well, it's funny. I've been bagging for Until this past 2 years, I bagged everything from before that. And so which brings me to
I need to start a funny T-shirt business.
Yeah.
That's a T-shirt.
No kidding.
Shaft bagger.
That's right. So, well, and which brings up another question. Now, let's start with target archery first and then go into bow hunting second. Pin nocks, G nocks, or standard nocks as far as bushings go in the target archery world.
And then how often do you replace them, or should you replace them?
Yeah.
I replace my nocks very often, right? Certain, knock brands that are great, but they just wear out faster, right? So you'll have to replace those more often, right? And I'm trying to not get all brand, if you can tell. I'm doing my best to kind of dodge, but out of all the nocks that are good, right, that some of them are made of different plastic than the others, and they may wear out or get tired or whatever faster.
Right.
So replacing the nocks like before every major competition would be a great idea.
It's
right.
cheap.
Just anytime I hit a slump, indoors, like suddenly my X count falls off. Sometimes just changing my nocks just brings it right back.
Right. Yep. I agree. I'm of the opinion you don't let $12 to $15 keep you off a podium. It's less than $1.
For real.
Yeah. So
when anyone complains about the price of something, I say, how much does it cost to miss?
Exactly. No.
So with that being said, like I'm heading out to Czech Republic for a shoot this week. I'll probably replace my I will replace my nocks before I go out there. But
for sure.
Do I replace them after all the practice days, or just keep them throughout the practice days and then?
No, replace them and practice with them. So if there's an issue somewhere in there, like maybe one of those nocks is bad or whatever, you want to catch that before you're like
100%.
So quote unquote, break them in.
Yeah. So do you have a preference on pin, G's, or standards as far as the knock goes?
I prefer pins for the convenience, right?
Yeah.
But I will tell you this, they can get bent, if you hit them.
Oh, yeah.
But what I always do before I just randomly stick a new knock on is I take the pin upside down and put it on my hand and give it a spin to make sure that it feels as straight as the arrow feels from the point.
Right.
Right. And I'll replace the pin and everything,
Gotcha.
If it doesn't feel glassy straight when I spin it on my hand.
So
because a bent knock won't hit.
Right. So talking about Vegas arrows, when you're running a full-length shaft with 200 to 300 grains in front, does a pin hurt you? Or is it okay? Or would you go to a standard?
I don't think a pin could. Yeah, I don't think a pin could hurt you, but I like the bigger nocks.
Me too.
And Gillingham and I were having a debate, about the forgiveness of tiny shafts versus the forgiveness. One of our famous debates that we have just standing on the field in the middle of Gator Cup. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And then while we're talking, we realize that we've gathered a group of people that are just standing around listening. Right?
Yep.
And we were talking about like fatter shafts are more forgiving than skinny shafts. And I was like holding him to it, right? Trying to, we're trying to convince each other.
Right.
And he finally said, and it just instantly took me over to his side, is he said, the skinny shaft has such a narrow, sweet spot for the string to push it and it still be straight out of the bow, not at a vector, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But the bigger the shaft is, the bigger the sweet spot it is for the string to propel the arrow with the energy collinear with the shaft, right?
Right.
Totally makes sense. So that would stand to reason that a bigger knock surface, I would think, right, would provide a bigger sweet spot for pushing the arrow accurately.
Correct. That's plausible. That makes sense. 100%.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about those same scenarios with a hunting arrow, shooting like a cut on contact broadhead. Do you still like shoot pin knocks hunting, or do you move to a G knock or a standard? Or maybe even a
lighted knocks and hunting.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
And the the name of the knot just jumped out of my head. I was going to actually say the brand.
Glory knock?
But I went through quite a few of them, right? And these went in the shaft really straight, and they still spun straight, in the shaft. That there was a really good component, sticking it in the back of the arrow. Right. So it's straight. If I didn't shoot a lighted knock, I would probably use pin knocks.
Pin knocks, okay.
Which is because I'm shooting a micro diameter hunting shaft,
correct,
right?
Correct.
That's what I went with when I did that elk hunt in Colorado. Just a regular pin knock with a hunter.
Yeah, gotcha.
A biter hunter.
Okay, that's good. Good information, because a lot of guys don't pay enough attention to the knock, and I think it's kind of like the artery that's connected to the heart of the arrow, which is the spine. I always say
it's everything.
It's everything.
The knock itself is everything. Because if that fails, the arrow doesn't go where you told it to, right?
Right.
It'll do something completely different.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And it's
and Jason, piece. You said biter hunter knocks.
Yeah, that's what I used for hunting. I figured hunters.
So try this before the season gets here, because you know how to work them, right? Try asymmetric knocks with your broadheads.
Oh, does it help?
And see how you like it.
Really?
I think you will love it. Okay. Because several studies are showing that, the one knock that stays against the soft knock, when the string is being pushed,
right,
is the biter asymmetric, because it holds it up into that knock as it's being pushed out. So you're getting a greater consistency of, angle.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
So just try it and see if your broadhead verticals don't go way better.
So with that being said, though, you're going to have to really pay attention to how you knock that at 4:30 in the morning in the dark.
And that's the drawback.
That's the only drawback. But
that's the drawback. It's a major drawback, but I live with asymmetric biters, every day. So I'm not likely going to make that mistake.
Right, exactly.
But a guy bow hunting who does casual practice, or he doesn't shoot them at least every day, he could make a mistake and knock it upside down.
Yeah, well, if you knock it upside down and you see a vein sticking down.
Yeah, if they're profiled properly.
Just go ahead and swap it around.
Yeah, exactly. That's great information, George, because I never even thought about that from a broadhead standpoint. And I can tell you right now, my phone's going to blow up tomorrow with 10 phone calls from 10 guys.
Yeah, sent a biter order next week.
Anybody that's tested arrow stability and all of that has kind of made that note that broadheads and these various things that add that little bit of extra for real really benefits broadhead shooters.
Wow.
Because there's not a lot of room for error with broadheads. We can do all kind of crazy tunes, and we can do all kinds of dumb stuff for target archery and field tips and still shoot perfect scores. But broadheads, it's got to be perfect or it won't work.
Okay. That's good. That's great. I'm going to try that this year, honestly. Okay, which brings us, this is going to be the big one. I've been saving this for last, even though it was the first thing I had written down on this paper. But I was like, here's the thing. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because this is the most polarizing subject probably in the last 10 years.
You're trying to get me in trouble now. I can tell.
Yeah, you're probably going to lose your mind over this.
We're not talking about nose buttons again.
No. But FOC. Now, I want to talk about it in two aspects. Target archery, does it matter? And then let's look at it on the hunting side. It is the most polarizing topic. We've got influencers out there like Ranch Fairy who says you got to shoot 200% FOC. Matter of fact, I don't even know why he has a shaft and feather and veins personally. Let's just throw a broadhead at him. It's just, and I fight this one a lot, because guys, that are out there on the internet talking about 17 to 25% FOC on their arrow shafts, and I always say, look, the guys that are making money doing this for a living are sitting in between 9 and 11%. It's just, and I don't even know if it's something that we even think about. I don't even think about it. I look at I want more weight on the front if I'm shooting known archery, so I don't get glance outs. In the FIDA world, I don't know.
I just put arrows together.
Yeah, just put arrows together and go shoot them. I mean, so George, what's your take?
I put arrows together and I use somewhere thereabouts the recommended point weight, for that shaft, right?
Right.
And Easton, they've done all the studies for all of this. They, practically, invented recurve bow tuning and, all of that kind of stuff, trying to find out what is the best way to launch a slender column through the air, right? And I just totally lost my train of thought.
FOC, George.
FOC.
FOC. Okay.
FOC.
Okay. Sorry. FOC. So, yes, FOC definitely matters, right?
Okay.
However, I think 200% FOC is way too much.
Yeah, it's insane.
And I've seen so many guys coming in trying to follow the advice of the massive FOC guys, and their bows won't shoot. They can't get them to tune, and they're novice shooters themselves, and they can't just through immaculate form make a super heavy FOC fly well, right? It just doesn't work for them.
Right.
So I get them in, right? Closer to the norm, and between 7 and 14% is kind of the window. Because if you don't have enough, your groups sort of parachute.
Right.
And if you have too much, the arrow plows and it starts to, the group starts to open.
Right.
So I think, yes, FOC absolutely matters, but within reason. Right. Because it's like the helical thing. If a little bit is good, a whole bunch is better. And there's a point where you've got a diminishing return, and then it becomes harmful.
Right.
Because I've tested my target arrows anywhere from 120 grains to 175 grains, and I ended up at a sweet spot around 150, and I'm guessing that's at or over 14% on my arrows.
Right.
14, 15, 16%.
Well, and then if you get up to that 20, I'm exaggerating 200%, but some of these guys are looking at 20 to 25% FOC, especially for hunting.
I think it's too much, especially when the broadhead weighs about as much as the total arrow weight. I mean, that's too much.
Well, then I get, you have that whole dynamic of if your arrow's not flying straight, then you're robbing that arrow of penetrating energy once it hits the animal.
Absolutely. And that's why the whole tune for broadheads is so critical. Because if the knock isn't directly behind the broadhead as it's going through, you're going to lose penetration.
You're going to lose penetration
because the energy will come off at an angle, and you see a deer running away with 26 inches of arrow sticking out.
And that doesn't matter what broadhead you're shooting. These guys talk
and if that happens to me, I'm like, oh no, exactly. when the arrow doesn't go completely through, I'm concerned.
Exactly. Which, it's kind of funny. So let's just talk about the next one, mechanical versus fixed.
So I've shot both. I used to be, because, I grew up with, Dan Quillian talking in my ear saying, cut on contact broad, 160 grains, right? The old traditional shooter, right? And I used to shoot 24-19s with 160 grain Rothar snuffers, and I would just knock the fur off of these little whitetails down here in Georgia, right?
Right, greyhounds.
And, he was absolutely against, mechanical broadheads. So I grew up absolutely against mechanical broadheads. And then Tim, we were having another one of our debates at one of the archery tournaments, and he's like, you ever tried those thorn broadheads? And I was like, sure, I've never tried them. I'm not really a mechanicals guy. He says, man, if you try them, you'll never go back. Well, I put some on and tried them. They shot good, killed a couple of animals, and they were nice. And I was like, wait a minute, this mechanical broadhead thing might be cool. And then I bought some of those giant whitetail specials. Have you ever seen those?
Oh, yeah. Grim Reaper whitetail
those
specials.
Things just shwa-ding, the blades come out. Yeah. And I have never had deer drop like they do when I shoot them with one of that big, expandable head. So for thin-skinned animals, like whitetails and, mule deer, even elk, right? I don't think a mechanical broadhead is a major problem. Elk are kind of beefy. Maybe you don't want to do that. But for whitetails, especially what I hunt mostly, mechanical broadheads do great, right? But the bigger the bones get and the thicker the hide gets and the longer their chest cavity is the arrow has to pass through, that's when you got to go back to a cut-on contact broadhead that has the least resistance. Those snuffers won a test that we did at Archery Shop with Dan Quillian. when you look, the first mechanical broadhead that we were aware of was called a punch cutter. Mm-hmm. And we were doing penetration tests, the old Muzzies and the punch cutters and all that. We couldn't push the punch cutter through the deer hide. So that just like totally failed.
Right.
And some of the large trocar point type broadheads, those were like, 16, 17 pounds, to push through the hide.
Right.
And then a snuffer, it was like 3-bladed, but the 3 blades come up to an exact point kind of like a Montec is now.
Correct.
Montec is kind of the modern snuffer.
Correct.
But that took 8 pounds to go through the hide. And then a Zwickey, a Delta Zwickey, the old traditional broadhead,
Zwickey
that only took 2 pounds to go through the hide.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So I would pick one of those type of broadheads. It cuts on contact. You lose very little energy through the entry of the hide. If you contact a big giant bone or something like that, broadhead might have enough juice to get through that, right? So I think that adjusting your gear for whatever it is that you're doing to have a reasonable chance of, making the arrow go all the way through, right? And that, absolutely. Just doubles your recovery possibility too.
So down here in Texas, I hate to say this, but the dog guys, the guys that are trackers for animals that are wounded,
they want you to shoot.
No, they actually tell you that they will, the least calls that they get are with mechanical broadheads.
Yeah.
The most of their calls that they get are with cut on contact broadheads. And this is with whitetail in Texas. And I've always said
with
this.
whitetails, man, those broadheads make such big holes. The recovery trail is very short. And as many deer as I've shot with those whitetail specials, not many of them went outside the scope of my tree stand. Maybe just barely out of sight.
Well, you look at a 1-inch cutting diameter, like you said, the Montec, for example, it's 1 inch. You hit a deer in the guts there, he's going to die, but they don't bleed a lot. It's a 1-inch little hole, and they coagulate pretty quick, and they can clog that hole with intestinal tissue, and you'll never find blood, so you can't find the deer. You shoot
my own experience with Montecs is I loved them. And I mean, I shot a truckload of animals with those things. But the one thing that I always noted is I got in the habit of like really making sure I could see the last thing that the deer passed before they went out of sight.
Oh, yeah.
Because the initial blood trail with the Montecs was a little thin.
Yep.
And I had to get farther along the trail before I could start really seeing the blood.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And that was the only thing I had with them. And, I got to be a pretty damn good deer tracker. On account of it. But I still loved them. But those whitetail specials or any of those really big mechanical broadheads on whitetails, it knocks the dust off of them.
Well, and that's the thing. You hit one in the guts with a 2-inch whitetail, special. He's got a 2-inch gash in his side, and they don't go very far. No. I mean, I hate to say this to get graphic, but I've seen them where their intestines were hanging out, and they don't go very far when they're in that kind of shape. And to your point, George, they just curl up and say, "Okay, I'm hurt pretty bad. I'm done. I'm gonna lay down and see if I can feel better." And I've always said this for the new hunter that's coming in that doesn't have the time behind the bow, is not putting in the time. He's got a better chance of harvesting a whitetail with a mechanical than he does with a cut on contact. Because I think the COC is precision. It's got to be precision,
I just like
I think you're absolutely right. Like beginners, inexperienced bow hunters that are just getting started, they've got a strong chance of killing an animal with a mechanical. But they got to make sure, that, the thing that I caution people with is they say, well, I tried a fixed blade broadhead and it wouldn't hit. So I put a mechanical on so that it would hit close to where my field tips were. But the problem is if your broadheads, if a fixed blade will veer, right, you'll also lose penetration with a mechanical, right?
Absolutely.
So a fixed blade head quality flight with a mechanical, if you get anywhere near the good zone, you got that animal. It's not going very far.
Yeah, without a doubt. What were you saying?
No, I was just saying I like the amount, the work that you save in tuning with a mechanical versus a fixed blade. And even, man, I wasn't the most experienced hunter, or I didn't know a whole lot. I wasn't down that rabbit hole. And I remember one day I came to your shop when you still owned the shop, and I was like, dude, I've hit the leg of my feeder 3 times with these damn fixed blades.
Yeah.
And you gave me a pack of dead meats.
Yeah.
And
Game
man,
over.
you want to talk about devastation?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It is crazy. All right, real quick one. I'm going to try to run through these because these are all good, and people are going to be wanting to know. Paper tuning versus walkback tuning.
They're both necessary,
Okay.
and I use them both, right? But I don't do walk back like everybody does walk back.
Okay,
so,
this is going to be good. I got to hear this.
Yeah, paper tuning, right? I just set everything up, eyeball everything in place, bink, bullet hole through the paper, right?
Okay.
I don't stress out about it, that much. This is target, okay, for bow
target,
hunting. Paper tune starts with beauty, right? And then I move forward with my broadheads, right?
Okay.
But for target, if I get a bullet hole through the paper after a basic setup, just eyeballing everything in place, that says to me, yes, the bow is working within operating parameters and within factory spec.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Doesn't mean it's accurate. Neither does shooting a bear shaft at great distance either, and getting them to group with your fletched arrows, because that says with a perfect execution that, yes, that bear shaft will fly beautifully straight, but you make one mistake on that shot and that bear shaft goes nuts.
Wild. Yeah.
Right? So paper tuning is necessary as is my bow okay step, right?
Right.
And then walkback tuning, I see guys now, the way they teach walkback is they like hang a string and then they start off shooting at the top. And then as they back up, they let the arrows fall down, so that they create a line. But with a compound bow and a release, right, the bear shaft, that walkback tuning is actually called French tuning. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing that they've been doing since the recurve days way back in the 60s, right?
Gotcha.
And with recurve, you need all of those shots in the middle, right? You set your sight for a mid-range, and then you walk forward and your mid-range hits high.
Right.
And then you walk through your mid-range and then walk through the long range and then stop before the next arrow is going to hit the dirt, right?
Correct.
And then you look at them. If those arrows trace with a recurve finger release, if those arrows trace a vertical, everything's fine.
Gotcha.
If the vertical goes out, you got to bring your cushion plunger in.
Correct.
If the vertical goes in, you got to bring your cushion plunger out.
Right.
Now, here's the thing that you need the arrows in the middle for. If the pattern makes a C, right, your cushion plunger is too stiff, and you got to back it off.
Right.
If it makes a D like that, your cushion plunger is too weak, and you need to add a little bit to make that straight. Right.
Right.
So without the arrows in the middle, you wouldn't be able to tell if you need a cushion plunger adjustment, right? If you just had the first one and the last one.
Right.
So I don't know, and I've never asked him, and I don't know why. I don't know if he invented this or not, but he was the very first person that I saw publicize it, right? So when I teach it to other people, I call it the Dudley Walkback. Right? Because John Dudley was the first person that I had seen. He wrote a magazine article about it in International Archer magazine or something. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, look at that, right? It was the coolest thing ever, right? And the way it works is you make a pencil line, and let's say your 60-yard pin will again be dead on at about 3 yards or so, mm-hmm. right? And I'm generalizing a little bit.
Right.
So you set your sight on 60, and then you walk up to 3 yards and shoot at a little thin pencil mark, right? And then you move your sight left and right until that arrow hits that pencil mark, just dead center.
Dead center.
Right?
Right.
Then back up to 60 and shoot at a vertical line. Right. It doesn't matter where along the line that you mm-hmm. hit, just as long as you're shooting at a vertical line. Mm-hmm. If the arrows impact right or left of the line, adjust your rest accordingly to bring the arrows onto the line.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Then you walk back up and then check your 3 you might maybe massage it just a little bit, right? And then go back to 60 and double check. And usually with a up, back, back up, and double check, you're done, right? You have dialed that rest to how you shoot for it to take a straight line over 60 yards, right? And I have used that method since I read that article.
Yep.
I've used that method to be my horizontal on my long range group tuning. Then I pull out the horizontal line and start working the arrow rest, vertical and below center until I get the tightest groups there. And never does my bow shoot a bullet hole when I come back inside after roasting ping pong ball sized groups at distance.
Yeah. So it's funny because that's why that question was brought up, because you want to hear something hilarious. So after we posted that last episode, Greg Copeland has been blowing me up. Like with videos. Oh yeah. Greg's been sending me pictures because this is one of his pet peeves in the world of archery tuning. I mean, if there's a guy that loses his mind over bear shaft versus, and doing exactly what you just said, and then he shot, and then he showed me, it's on my phone right now. He sent me a picture of a 70-yard dead middle group, 3 arrows, and then shot a bear shaft that was about 3.5 inches, 7 o'clock, from there. And, and there's a lot of guys
that's close enough.
No, they'll literally tear their bow apart and go back to retuning to get those arrows to hit the same.
Maybe this will help people get their head wrapped around this, because I just shocked a whole bunch of people with this, right?
Yeah.
This is how long range group tuning works, right? This is a cheap explanation.
Mm-hmm.
If I put a ball bearing in the middle of a tray, right, and told you to walk this line while holding that ball bearing exactly dead center in the middle of the tray, right? Any mistake you make will throw that ball bearing off course.
A mile, yeah, right.
But if I tell you, tip the tray and max the ball bearing into the corner of the tray and then walk this line, you'll be able to carry that ball bearing no problem.
No issue,
right? A stabilizer setup, right? If it's perfectly balanced on a nail and you bump it, it'll readily turn in any direction.
Correct.
Right? So we hang that bar off center to add a little bias into the bow. So then when the bow is bumped, bump, it goes right back to where it was. Right?
Right.
So if you have a perfectly bear shaft tuned bow, right? And then every little mistake that you make will show, in your long range group.
Right.
Every little face drag, every little too hard with the nose, every little too much pressure on the wall, every little tick of pressure loss as you touch the trigger. All those little things will scatter that perfectly tuned arrow all over the place.
Yep.
Because the arrow only takes the direction that you give it, right?
Right.
But by long range group tuning and doing trial and error on adjustments until the arrows group the tightest through kind of that systematically horizontal, vertical way, until they group the tightest, that bow's not in tune. It has a slight bias. And if I have a little drag or a touch or something like that, the bias will help take over that arrow, and the flight out of the bow is much more consistent than a perfectly centered thing coming out at slightly different vectors.
Correct. That makes so much sense. I'm going to start using that one. That's a good one, actually. And then,
but you can't do it with broadheads. Broadheads have to be perfect.
Different. Yeah, broadheads different. Yeah, this is not.
I have to keep saying that because I get guys get confused and they go, "Dude, I did that thing with my things and my broadheads were diving into the dirt."
Yeah, exactly. Well,
not a broadhead.
So I do want to ask a follow up to that. So you do 3 yards, 60 yards. And then once you
I say that loosely. I actually look at my sight tape and see what the distance is, the close distance is for 60.
Right.
And it's roughly 3 yards somewhere.
Right. But with that being said, after you've done that, you find that your 30 and 40 and 50 just fall right in line?
It's money.
Okay.
If I see a difference left-right, it's because I'm mismanaging my grip.
Right. So it's funny you say it. Yeah. So I probably do the traditional method of setting my sight at 20, walking up to 5 yards, shooting at one dot, then backing up to 15 and then backing up to 25, 3 arrows, looking at the line. But that's really good advice. So 3 and 60.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you,
try
it
that.
cuts out like it's so fast.
Yeah,
I can be at a
4
compound development camp, right, with 40 kids, and I go, all right, everybody, set your sight on 3 yards, and then we walk down to the target, shoot at the edge of the paper or a line or whatever.
Right.
Okay, let's go back. Let's use this. Keep the pin where it is. Shoot now, right? And then we adjust the arrow rest left, right, however we need to do. We go up to check, come back. And I've got 40 people did all that in like no time at all, right? And then they could get back to training.
Yeah, that's
right? Get back to making themselves better shooters.
You literally did that in 4 shots, all things being considered. Yeah.
Well, not 4 shots. We shoot a few arrows at close range to make sure it's right. But it's 4 positions.
4 positions,
right?
Correct.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. I'm going to try that for now on.
How would that differ
try
from...
it. And I challenge you, like, get your bow that you did do the walk back group tuning that you did, right? And then just Dudley check it and see if it turns out.
If it falls into place,
and then randomize it and try it again.
Yeah.
Right, and see if you can see a difference.
Yeah.
No,
and if you do, let me know.
What I was going to ask was, how much different is what I do? Because sometimes I'll be at 50 meters, and I'll take duct tape and make
a vertical,
make a cross, make a vertical, and make a horizontal, and then I'll shoot all my verticals and move my rest left and right to make sure that everything hits the tape.
Right.
And then shoot the horizontal and move my rest up and down to make sure that everything hits the horizontal.
Well,
I think you're kind of doing the same thing.
He is,
but being the fact that you don't have a peep sight, I think there's a little bit more going on there, right, than just adjusting the arrow rest. I think you may be dialing it in to how you see the string and pin together.
Correct.
Right. There may be a little customization happening there too.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. And honestly, you're never going to shoot 3 yards. You make all your money at 54 yards.
Yeah, and I'm going to be going in and checking my aero flight too, because I'm anal about that.
Right.
Yeah, because you can long range group tune at 70, and then use the spectrum of a mistake at 70, so you can really see what's happening. And then when you make the edit and it closes down and you get to 50, it's going to be really good at 50. And I always say, when you're long range group tuning, use your longest capable distance. So if you can stretch it way out there and then do the group tuning procedure, it's much tighter at the real competitive distance.
Gotcha. So I had to switch the camera over to me because, George, you have a sign over your face right now. Scott's.
Oh yeah. What's the sign over my face?
Scott's battery
is running low. Okay.
Yeah. We thought it was gonna charge. It's plugged up to the Roadcaster, but
there we go.
Live and learn. I mean, we only got
Roadcaster probably won't feed power back.
Not that much.
I don't think it does. It'll feed the mic's power, but I don't think it's made to feed power through the USB-C.
No, but that's crisis averted. But that's super cool. I can't wait to try that. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm like excited now.
I was going to say we only got 7 minutes left, so
crap.
We're good.
All right, let me pick these up. String stop or no string stop, George?
I've tried it both ways. Don't think it matters. But the after vibration of the arrow being diminished makes the bow feel better. So don't do. I don't think it's going to hurt you.
So you don't think it has anything to do with knock travel at all?
No.
No.
I think what it's really there for is it stops the after vibration of the string much quicker, so it gives the bow a very sudden stop without any resonant sound, which makes the bow hunter feel that the bow is smoother and higher quality.
Yep.
It's one of the rack tricks, because you got to sell it at 3 yards, just shooting arrows and just feeling for vibration to measure a bow's quality. And vibration doesn't have anything to do with overall accuracy.
So it's funny you say that. So we always say bows are sold at 5 feet, and And I tried to change this paradigm, and and I'm going to try not to be I got to be careful with this one politically. There's a manufacturer out there who has made all their money on quiet, dead in the hand, vibration free. It's their moniker.
Yep.
It's how they design bows.
That's how people choose bows.
And what's funny is I tried for the last 8 years when I had my shop, and I had a pretty successful, pretty big shop, and I tried to change that paradigm because I would ask everybody when they were testing bows. So I got a question. The last time you killed, did you kill a deer last year? Yeah, I killed a big 10-pointer. I said, so after the shot, as soon as you made the shot, did you think about how dead in the hand and quiet and vibration free your bow was? He's like, well, of course not. I said, well, what did you care about? Well, whether I hit the animal or not is all I cared about. So I have always been of the opinion that those three senses that we market our archery to are post-arrow flight senses. The arrow's gone when you get that feedback. Right. So I tried to re-educate my customer base to say, I think there are three things you need to pay attention to. The draw cycle, number one, how good it is, how smooth it is, can you handle it?
How easily can you pull it quietly, and can you let it down?
Yes.
That's another big one that people ignore. Can you let it down without a big clatter?
Right.
What's letting down?
Exactly.
Seriously, we all know the only thing I let down is myself.
Exactly. Then number two, I think, is how strong or how is the valley in relation to what you want and feel. Like the valley, how does it come back? Is it 85% good? Do you want it at 90? Do you want it at 60? I mean, that valley, I think, is more important also to how we hold. And then which brings me to the next point, which is that how good does that bow aim naked? I mean, do you have to fight the grip and get it to center to get to, and to fight it, to get the valley to feel right? And because aiming I think is something that we don't put enough onus on when we're choosing bows, which brings me to another point here in a second that I've got written down. But so I tried to re-educate everybody. Those three things I think are more important because guess what? Where is your arrow when you are testing or feeling all of that information? It's still in your bow. Mm-hmm. So I think it matters more. Yeah. I think we've been teaching the arrow shooting public, archery public, the wrong things to concentrate on when they go to pick their compound bow. That's my opinion.
Well, I will tell you this from my experience in the pro shop environment, right? And if I tried to educate a guy who's out kicking tires and looking at bows and all that stuff, and I try to educate a guy and I tell him all about everything and try to make him understand what the differences are between the different ones and, all of that kind of stuff, it just ended up making me a poor bow salesman, right? Because those guys would be bewildered and they would just leave. And I discovered that if they go, hey, I want that brand, I turn around and hand it to them, and then we walk over there and shoot it, and they decided already that they loved it. Yeah. So they're going to buy that bow, and they're going to go. And the more talking that I did, the more I talked them out of a bow purchase, and then they just go down the road to get it from somebody else. Yeah. And I was a terrible bow salesman because I was trying to educate everybody that walked through the door because that's what my reflex is, right? Yeah. So I finally just said, I'm just going to let them pick, and if they ask me, why should I be looking at this bow over this bow? And I think that's a pretty smart question to ask a pro shop guy.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, why should I be paying attention to the differences between these two? And then that gives me an opening to say, the decisions that this company made to make the bow feel good and quiet have these ramifications.
Yeah.
And the decisions that this company made to make their bow do the same thing have these effects.
Right.
And here's what those two different effects mean, right, when you're actually shooting an arrow outside with a broadhead on the end of it, right? Yeah. And then the guy can make an informed decision. But in most cases, guys didn't want to be taught anything. They just want to be sold a bow. Well, so I let them shoot every bow in the store.
Oh, yeah.
And then they go, you know what? This one's great. And I said, I think you're right. Great choice, sir. Come right on over here. Let me set you up.
With that being said, does string angle matter?
It does matter because a tighter string angle is just hard to shoot, right? If you're a pro, right? It's nothing. It's no problem, right? That kind of stuff don't bother pros, right? But if you are the average shooter out there, right? You're really good tack shooter, right? Or your bow hunter who's been shooting for 3 or 4 years, right? I don't think it makes that big of a difference, right, between the two. It's harder for them to shoot the tight string angles on the extreme ends. But the difference between 28 and 30 really isn't that big of a deal, depending on how big the cam is. Right. But the difference between 28 and 40 is a pretty big deal. Right. So I think it's just a matter of extremes. In a shooting machine, there's probably, and I say there's probably because I haven't actually tested it, but I'm assuming that in a shooting machine, they would both drill because there's an absence of mistakes, that spectrum of form, right? They would drill.
It always shocked me. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The brace height and axle to axle discussion really came from the recurve days. Do you need a 70-inch bow? Do you need a 68-inch bow? Because when you're grabbing the string with your fingers and pulling that back to full draw, and the string must fit your face, right? A bow really had to change its length anywhere from 48, 56, 58, 66, as you went up, those standard lengths that you would see, that they would fit a person based on their shoulder width and draw length and face height and, all that. Mostly the draw length was the big thing, because if you had a short draw length, a big bow's string angle wouldn't fit your face. So you needed the short one, right? And they all said that a high brace height is more forgiving. So our target bows used to have 10-inch brace heights. Right? It was nuts. Some of them are even 12 inches, right? We've slowly gone down. Like Dave Cousins and I were some of the first guys that showed up with glass limbs, not wooden recurve limbs. We went from 48-inch bows to 46-inch bows, and all the top pros of the day told us we weren't going to be able to hit anything with those at all. Right. And then we showed up with big old cams, and they were like, you can't hit anything with cams, right? So over the years, we've completely dispelled a lot of the brace height axle to axle cams versus round wheels. We've slowly replaced all those assumptions with more modern ones, and we're discovering now that brace height isn't that big of a deal anymore. Axle to axle isn't that big of a deal anymore. It's a fit and feel issue, but it's not a overall accuracy and tunability issue.
Well, it always blew my mind how this industry goes and ebbs and flows. And I know back, and you probably remember this, I never sold so many Matthews triaxes, 28-inch axle bow, to guys who were 6'3", pushing 31 inches, and they were okay shooting a 30-inch bow. And, and then wondering and coming back to me a month or two later, with form like this, trying to reach the string to get their nose on the string. And man, it was just, and I kept trying to tell them, your body's just not designed for a bow that short. It's better in my tree stand, better in my blind. And I used to shoot 45.
And the bow would shoot fine if he gave up on touching his nose and just pull it back and look through the peak. The bow would shoot just fine for him. It would magnify error.
Without a doubt.
Because of his long draw length.
Right. Exactly. So I was just curious.
Other than that, it's really not a big of a problem.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, so Jason told me to
We're not going to go over the rest of them.
God, I got some good stuff in here, though, dude. I mean, good.
We're going to do a part 3 to kind of close out the series, George. We'll have a series called the George Myth Busting.
Just food for thought, and this is a big one with me. I'm just going to say it. I don't want you to say a word about it. We'll save it for the next one. But integrated rest versus non-integrated. Because this one drives me bananas. Just going to leave it.
I don't really have an opinion over that.
What? George, I thought you would like.
I really don't. So I want to hear what your thing is, right? But next time.
We'll do it next time. But I have a big opinion on that one. So, anyways, we'll have to save it because I've got probably 15 more. But it's good stuff and what's cool, the listening public is sending me some of this stuff, and they're like, because I've heard this, and is it right or wrong? And a lot of it's social media driven. I hate to say it. So,
yeah.
Anyways, George, I know you've been on the phone a lot today. I think on podcasts. Yeah.
Hey,
so, no, he's been
now when
gone.
y'all post this, when I start taking heat, y'all better get in there and back me up.
Oh, dude, you and I are cut from the same cloth, brother. Let me tell you, and it's probably an age thing. But we appreciate you greatly, George. Thanks for taking your time. I know it's valuable, but I hope we can do a part 3 to kind of close the loop on this thing, because there's some really good stuff in this pad right here. Really
All right, well, let's do it.
do it.
So
All
we'll
right,
see
brother.
how everybody likes this one.
All right, we thank you, Jason.